Okay, I need a volunteer. Lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You did a great job. Okay, welcome to the January edition. Let's get this over before it snows. What snow? Okay. I'm turning my cell phone off. Hope you do too. Now, we got any first timers tonight? Oh, look at you all. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for coming. Now, for your benefit, look around and see how many World War II veterans we have in the house by their show of hands. Glad you're all here. Now, if you want to be on our email list or on our postcard list, Laura, are they up there? The blue slips out back?
Blue slips are out back.
Okay, the slips out back, sign yourself up and you will get on our correspondence list, and we'd love to have you come as often as you can. All right. Last month, because we're a 501c3 charitable organization, we have to have a board meeting and go through some business, and we did that last month. Set of bylaws as we have. In accordance with them, we met and we let our nominating committee do the arduous task of nominating ourselves for another term. So, with your approval, I'm Kirk Gibson, President, Charlie Lloyd, Vice President, Rich Burton, Secretary, Bob Watkins, out back, counting money, is our treasurer. We also have some directors, Rick McCann, over here, John Horn, AWOL, Terry Hartzell, up here, Laura Peswell, top yonder. And we had Ed Shawstall, who will remember, most of you will, usually sat at the desk outside there, welcoming the World War II vets. For some family reasons, he has asked to be resign his commission as a director. And in his place, we have nominated and elected Chris Hoffman, who's standing in the back there. And a little word about him. Of all things, he's got a doctorate in history, specifically World War II, and even more specific. So he's been a great help and will continue to be a great help in helping Charlie interview and vet future speakers. So, Chris, thanks for stepping up, and we're glad to have you. Now, the most important reminder I have for you people who don't know is that we have no members, we don't charge admission, but we do have a free will offering, which our helmet committee will greet you as you leave tonight with the World War II helmet, and feel free to deposit anything $50 or more. Well, whatever you want, that's how we work. Okay, and I really appreciate it. So this time of year, it's very hard to ignore if you think, and we've been down this path before, talking about the Battle of the Bulge, which started on December 16th, and it will rage on until January 25th in the Ardennes forest of Belgium and Luxembourg. By the 25th, we'll have lost about 80,000 GIs, either killed, captured, or wounded. 80,000. More than any other battle in U.S. history. And it probably would still be raging, except for the Germans finally ran out of fuel for their tanks and had to withdraw. Critical element. They just didn't go any further. So consequently, the Allies were able to close the gap that the Germans had pushed in the line, and that ended that. But as if that wasn't enough in January, on January 22nd, 6 months after the invasion of Sicily, the Americans and British troops swarmed ashore at Anzio Beach. That was the brainchild of Winston Churchill, and it was dubbed Operation Shingle. The attack caught German troops stationed there completely off guard, and after the initial onslaught, the Germans dug in, and the next 4 months saw some of the fiercest fighting of World War II, including Canadians, French, alongside the British and Americans. Battled the troops for control of the region, the Italian campaign, at the cost of several thousand more lives. So 1944, the winter of 1944 was just a real dog in Europe. Meanwhile, the war is raging in the Pacific. The Japanese were continuing their island hopping campaign, and the reason they were doing that is to take as many islands as they could away from, far from Japan, to impede the Americans' advance towards Japan. It's basically a defensive, brutally defensive move on their part. But you'll hear a little bit more about that, what our reaction was to that, I expect. Now I'm going to do something I don't do very often. I'm going to compliment somebody. Charlie Lloyd, our intrepid speaker coordinator, deserves an award for perseverance. Our original speaker, as you know, we probably got the announcements on it, was Guy Whitman. He's 101st Airborne. And he had to back out because he hurt himself. He's 94 years old and he goes to the gym every day, and I think he was lifting weights and hurt his back. To try to make himself better, he went to the next day to the pool and swam a half a mile to loosen up a little bit, but it didn't completely solve his back problem, so he's still on the injured reserve list. But at latest count, he wants to come and talk to us, and apparently he's got a terrific talk to give to us, so we'll have him soon. Tentative February. We'll probably get an announcement or 4 before that. But meanwhile, so now right up until a week or so ago, we thought, well, he was on again, off again. So Charlie went out and found 3 other potential speakers, all of whom at the last minute also couldn't come. Now, we have a friend sitting up here. You heard his uncle. Uncle. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. His name.
He's older than me, but I'm his uncle.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm older than
You're his nephew. Yeah. I think strange things happen in the Kline family.
His father is my brother.
Yeah.
And I was a baby of 9, so that's the story.
Okay. Well, we've had Nathan speak here before, and he was terrific. And bless the Kline family that they had an uncle. Well, the 2 of them were in World War II, and this guy here lives close by, and we knew he's been here before, sitting right over here. So Charlie went out and snagged him, and thank you very much for stepping up at the last moment. And Charlie will tell more about him in a minute. Finally, let me just say, February 3rd is our next meeting. If you're going to make dinner reservations, call Bev. You'll have her name on the announcements. Call her by January 30th, please. Make your dinner for sumptuous dinner downstairs, right back, and bring a guest next month. Bring somebody new. We'd love to have you. So, Charlie, yes, sir.
Thursday, the first Thursday of February is February 2nd.
Picky. Thank you. February 2nd. Okay, any other message? Rich Burton, Vietnam. I was in Philadelphia 2.5 hours ago. I don't know.
There will not be a Vietnam roundtable. Normally we have it next Thursday, but I'm taking off January and February. So our next meeting is the 2nd Thursday in March. I have 2017 scheduled in the back. So no meeting in January, no meeting in February. Thank you.
You going to Cancun on his time?
I promised him I wouldn't say.
Okay, and a note about some important things happening at Indiantown Gap this month. Mike, here we go.
Hi, I'm great. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Moy. I have some information here in regards to the Battle of the Bulge reenactment coming up in a couple weeks. We're going to have some open barracks displays. It's going to be on Saturday and Sunday. Oh, I'm sorry, Friday and Saturday from about 8 o'clock to about 3 in the afternoon. So if you want to come through, it's going to be in Area 13. There'll be signs posted in regards to which barracks you could walk into. So you could either walk into American, British, or German barracks, and we'll be happy to have you. There's also going to be a passing review on Saturday, and that's going to be at the wash rack right near the tank trail. So that's also it's in Area 12. It's kind of hard to find, but there's going to be signs posted. After this, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any for you.
One of the dates, I'm sorry, the last week in...
The 25th to the 29th.
The open barracks are going to be on Friday and Saturday. There's also going to be some stuff for veterans. It's a little too late to register now, but there's a swing dance on Friday for the veterans at the community club. There's also a Kline ceremony. They would love to have as many of you show up just for that.
Everybody hear that? You have a point to make?
Yeah, I just want to, I can probably yell loud enough. Doug Riley, ex of Northern High School. I can't invite you all to show up, but David Wisniewski is coming back next Friday to Northern High School to speak to the students at an assembly. He will be bringing his book. For those of you who don't remember David's story, he's probably the only Auschwitz survivor that ended up in the 101st. Not sure how that happened to this day, but somehow it happened. And I know he was just here a couple months ago. But for anybody that missed him or would like maybe a copy of his book signed, he will be in the area from Thursday night through Friday evening. And if you have any questions, see me. Again, I don't think I can ask you to come into the high school because we all don't have our clearances, but we'd love to have, at least if you need to talk to David or get a copy of his book, I'll be happy to arrange that after we're done tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And with all due respect to David, he gave a terrific talk here, and I can tell you how we got into the airborne. I can tell you from personal experience, they're not too picky. So, Charlie, you got anything to say about our speaker and current and future speakers? Well, why don't you?
Good evening. As he said, we've had some cancellations, which is why I have gray hair. It was blonde 3 weeks ago. We actually met Chuck Kline 2 months ago, I think, wasn't it? Just about 2 months. Nate Kline spoke here 2 years ago, and he was navigator, bombardier, and a marauder, 26. So he came. 2 years later, he happens, and we're always looking for veterans, right? 2 years later, he said, well, by the way, I have a nephew in Harrisburg who was in the war. An uncle. I am getting to that age and been screwed up. So we went and interviewed Chuck, and amazing story, and amazing gentleman. And we'll be glad to share that with you tonight. Prior to that, I want to make a couple announcements. We have Guy Whitten coming in February, God willing. His back is healed. He's getting injections in his back. There's a name for it. I don't know, is it epidural or something? I don't know, but there's something in his back that he needs to get straightened up. He's called 3 or 4 times and wants to be here. So I know he'll be here. I've also talked to a fellow by the name of Milton Venus, who said he would come up and speak. I have to go and interview him. He's in King of Prussia. He was in the 9th Photo Division in Japan, and he was taken into Nagasaki on the 2nd day and took pictures, hundreds and hundreds of pictures. And I said, that must have been horrible. He said, well, I didn't take pictures of people, but everything else is complete destruction. Although he said, I take that back. I took a picture of a mother and a child in the doorway of a building that was demolished, and they were both smiling. He said, but for the rest, he said, I didn't think it was proper to take liberties with their dignity. So we hope to have him here in the next 2 months or so. And then we have some other fellows that also we've been talking to, we need to interview them. And while we're talking about interviewing, Kurt mentioned that we started a process where we go out and interview them first, and that's what we did with Chuck at his house. And where is Chris? Chris Huffman, he went along with me, and he wrote down 3 pages, single-spaced notes. I had about a paragraph. So God bless this guy. He's probably a student of yours, Bill. He takes copious notes. But Chris, thank you for all you do. We appreciate that. Looking forward to working with you. And we will be interviewing our future speakers prior to releases and all that. So that's going to be a big step forward. I don't want to forget World War II weekend. We're co-coordinators with the Allentown group. We have 45 veterans signed up now, first weekend in June. It's a fun time. You got 30,000 people coming to meet the veterans. We have Herschel Williams coming. I don't know if you know of Herschel. I call him Woody. And he's the last living Medal of Honor winner from Iwo Jima. And he's coming up here from West Virginia to speak. And he'll be at the World War II. He's not coming here, he's going to be at World War II weekend. And he does it, he gets an honorarium from selling stuff up there, but he's doing it, and all the money he raises up there from donations will be given to the Gold Star Mothers Fund. So we have a bunch of people we're talking to. We try to keep it active, and thank you for your patience and understanding when something goes wrong and we get somebody. Remember last month we got Ray Souders. I found him at 3 o'clock, talked to him at 4 o'clock, picked him up at 5 o'clock, and he was here to talk. That's getting a little close. When we interviewed Chuck in his house up in Lanelstown, you mentioned the brothers. I thought it was rather fitting that the Kline family went to war. Chuck went. His uncle, brother, whatever, there's a nephew went, that was Nathan. And I only found out when I was at his house interviewing him, there was a picture of a veteran, a World War II veteran. And I said, who's that? And he said, that was my other nephew. And that was Howard. And he was shot down over Bremerhaven. So the Kline family paid their dues. You were born in Bethlehem. Your mother passed when you were 12. Your dad's a machinist at Bethlehem Steel. Did you know that? Okay. Lehigh High School. Oh, Howard was a waist gunner. I didn't forget that. Okay. And you signed up for Naval Air Cadet. Well, you know what happens in the service. That's nice. Guess what? You're going to be on a ship. So much for that. The Wasatch says, I'll let you take that over because that's the ship there. And he can go through that, and then we'll open it up for questions. I give you Bosun's Mate 3, 3rd class.
Coxswain, as they say.
Coxswain.
Yeah.
Do you use that anymore? Is that an old term?
Everybody uses, if you're a Navy personnel, you say coxswain. Nobody says bosun mate 3rd class.
See, I stand corrected again.
Everybody. If you're a bosun mate, you're 2nd class, 1st class, or chief. But if you're 3rd class, you're a coxswain.
Thank you. Thank you for correcting me. I'm going to remember that the next time.
And if you're a boat coxswain, you're a double coxswain.
I think I'm going to be quiet about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Chuck Kline.
Thank you very much. This is the first time I've been a public speaker, and I don't mind telling you I'm nervous. And I'm going to wing it. Charlie asked me to come up here in place of someone who was supposed to speak and was second. And Charlie's been so great to me and all his friends and veterans and helpers. They've just done so much, it's just unbelievable. And I just could not say no. So here I am, and I'm going to try to get by. If you don't throw eggs at me at the end of the meeting, I'll be a happy man. First, before I get into the nitty-gritty of the things, I'm going to show you the ship that I was on. And you got to remember that I got on this ship when I was still 17 years old. And in fact, there's a picture of me when I came out of boots and had my first boot leave and went to Philadelphia. And a friend of mine and I took pictures of each other. Charlie said, "How come you don't have many pictures, and what you have are all beat up?" I said, "Well, first of all, we didn't have any cameras. Second of all, if we had cameras, we wouldn't be able to get any film. There was no film you could buy anywhere. So all the pictures I got were pictures that either radio man or yeoman or people up in the bridge took of me that they gave me. And I had quite a few bit more, but then I was in the 98 flood here, and that's why all these look a little soggy. So that's the history of that. There is the actual LCVP or Higgins boat that I drove. I got that model at the museum down in Louisiana. And they have a LCVP Higgins boat. If you go down there to visit, you walk in the door, right to your left is a Higgins boat just as big as they. And I'll tell you, I walked in there, and I looked to the left, I had tears in my eyes when I saw it. So let me first give you a little bit of information about the ship I was on. If you look at this ship, it actually was built to be the head of the invasion fleet. This was a flagship of the 7th Amphib Fleet. And all of these ships were named after mountains. This is the Wasatch, which is a mountain in Utah. There's the Mount Olympus, the Pocono, the Mount Everest, and so forth. All those ships. And they carried all the officers and generals and admirals for every invasion that we made, which was 5 in number. All the orders were given from this ship for both the Navy and the Army, because we had the generals and the admirals as well. And I'll give you a list of them as we go along. But I want to give you a little background on the ship. It was built to look like a Liberty ship, like a freight counting ship, purposely, so that they knew that they're going to have all these highfalutin generals and admirals on there. They didn't want to be recognized or being able to be seen as that type of ship when we were in the convoy going in the middle of it. We would be in the middle of the convoy on every invasion. So the only thing that gave us away were the radar and the, have to forgive my handshakes, I'll try to use the other one. You'll see that the towers of the radar and radio, that was because we had the command of the whole fleet. Whatever invasion we went to, and there could be 600, 700 ships, all took their orders from this ship. Okay? Now I'm going to get personal. Well, not yet. This ship had its firepower, had a 5-inch gun in the bow, a 5-inch gun in the stern. We had 2 twin 40 millimeters in the bow, 2 twin 40 millimeters in the stern, and I would say about 15 20 millimeters all along the side on the port and starboard sides. So we had a decent amount of firepower, but that wouldn't be considered much firepower as compared to a destroyer or a battleship or a cruiser. But we had enough to protect ourselves if they came in too close. Another thing that you might want to know about this ship is that when we were in convoy, there were 2 things that we had to be very, very concerned about. Number one were the kamikazes, the zero suicide planes. And as I read you from the ship's log, you'll see how many times we were attacked. But also, there were motorboats that were suicide subs. 2 men with the torpedo was the sub. In other words, the nose of the sub was the torpedo. The idea was if they didn't blow the ship up, they didn't do their job. I'm not talking about our ship, I'm talking about their submarine. Okay? So we had kamikaze to contend with, we had suicide subs, suicide motorboats. And this will surprise you, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but if you talk to someone that was in the area that we were, they would know. We had guards that were gunner's mates in rank that walked the perimeter of the lifelines on the ship when we were anchored in any of the places that we came after the invasion, or maybe even during, after the invasion, and the beaches were taken care of and we got the orders to leave. We might be staying in the harbor for a little while. And literally suicide swimmers would come up along the side of the ship and try to blow them up. So we had armed guards walking the perimeters of the ship with carbines and with M1s and I forget the other types of, but all types of hand-carried weapons that they literally shot down if they saw any kind of weight in the water. So that pretty well brings you up to date as the ship that I was on. As to me personally, I drove this boat right here, the LCVP number 5, which is over here. If you want to really see it, it's right on the table there. I got that at that museum I'm talking about. And it was up in the davit when we were in convoy. There was one LCVP over here, one LCVP over there. Our ship only carried 2 landing craft. We had, I think, 5 or 6 boats altogether. But the other was the admiral's barge, the captain's gig, and another admiral's barge. So that was for taking the big admirals and generals ashore or wherever they had to go between ships. Nobody got in those boats except those people. Okay? So you'd say, well, why only 2 landing craft? Well, they had to have some boats to take the crew ashore for liberty and things like that and whatever. So we did that. But we also made the landings. And people would say, well, if you were in 5 landings, how come you weren't in more first waves? I was only in 1 first wave. The first one was in Morotai in New Guinea. And what happened there, and I'll read a little bit about that, was that, you see, when we got there, we gave the orders when to go. So consequently, because Morotai was our first landing, I guess they wanted to get our feet wet. We went in on the first wave. By the time we got in there, believe it or not, more than 70% of the beach was secure. So we were really very, very lucky. Had very little fire. We had a lot of fire going in from our own ships. But every time the ships would give you a tremendous amount of barrage from cruisers and destroyers, and they had to do that before the troops hit the beach because they didn't want to have any casualties of our own. So by the time the boats hit the beach, the barrage stops. Okay, and you're there on your own now. We hit that beach, and I left the 36 40-foot infantry off, and we had a little bit of machine gun fire, 50 caliber, 30 caliber, and heavy mortars. Not too much though. It really was very light. We were very lucky. Most of the Japanese had gone back over the hill and into the woods, to the jungle. And I was just talking to a fellow, Sal, and he made the landing there. He came in on a different, and he had a lot more than we did. But on that first landing, I said to my crew, you know, this isn't so terrible. Well, we go home, we're going to be big heroes, and, you know, we didn't actually get anything that much shot at us. We did some, but, you know, nothing to be really crazy about. But we found out on the next landing, which was Lady, what it was all about, because that was a totally different situation. And all kinds of fire from our ships before we got in with the barrage, all kinds of P-51s, Army aircraft straight from the beaches, P-38s, Navy Wildcats, you name it. You know. And fortunately, again, I was fortunate that I got on, unloaded my troops, and because we were the only two boats on the flagship, we didn't have to stay on the beach as long as the boats that came from the troop ships. People said to me, if you don't mind, I'm going to sit down. My back is not the greatest. People said to me, well, after that, you said you were in 4 more landings. Well, why were you always in the second wave instead of some first waves, except just the first time? Well, the reason for that was that the troop ships had their own LCVPs and Higginsville, and those were the ones that went in on the first wave. On all the other landings that we'd go, our 2 boats would go and make a circle with some of the other ships that were in the fleet. And the officer of the day would call us on a megaphone microphone, and he'd say, "Number 5 boat AGC," and then you'd approach the net and come up, and the troops would come down off the ship and come onto the boat. And then you would leave the ship and then get together with the rest of the boats and all go in at the same time. Now, when you'd go in, after the beach was pretty well secured on the first wave, but you still had some firepower on the second wave. It was, I don't know exactly how to say it, but when we got there, our biggest headache was mortars and machine gun fire. There wasn't too much of the real heavy artillery. I don't think the Japs had that much heavy artillery. They had cannons, what we call cannons, and if you ever see a picture of them, I don't know what millimeter they are or whatever, but they had wheels on them that were this high, and they looked like old wagon wheels, but they were metal. And that's how they would roll these things around in different positions. And those were the heaviest that I ran into. But let me say this. If there is anybody that was ever in any invasion of that type, and he said that he was not scared, he wasn't there. Because there is so much noise, so much going on, so many explosions, and people dying, and everything happening at the same time that you literally do everything by automatic. You're on automatic. You don't think about anything. You don't do anything other than what you were taught to do. And when the beach master gives you permission to leave, you're the happiest guy there. Okay, so we really, really could feel for the infantry that had to stay. One other interesting thing that you might know that when I tell people about these things, I like to tell them about things they might not have heard otherwise. When we hit the beach, you'd get to about 30 yards from the beach, and then you'd give it a little bit more gun. You don't want to go too far up because then you got to worry about coming off. But you don't want to get, you want the soldiers to be able to get the least amount of water that they have to get through, because first of all, it slows them down. Second of all, if they fall and their weapons get wet or whatever, they get a problem. So you want to get them up as dry as possible and keep the thing going. So, because when people fall or anything else, then things get backed up. So we try to get up as high as you can, but then you got to know that you got to come back up. And this only ever happened to me once, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was in Lingayen. I went up too high, and I really was, because I was more anxious than anything else. And the beach master gave us the okay to get off. So I start backing her down, and I realized, I'm not moving. And I'm sitting there, and you know, there's mortar fire, machine gun fire. I'm going to get the hell out of there. So there's only one way you can do it. We have to take our anchor and throw it out as far as we can, and we couldn't get it out far enough, so I had my bow hook and then my stern hook and swim out with it, throw it down and back her down off the anchor. And that's how you pull a boat off the beach if you get stuck up there. That gives you a little background as far as the naval operation. Let me, while I'm being a little selfish here and telling you about myself, the boat crews didn't have their general quarters. You know, I assume you know what general quarters is. That's when you're being attacked and you're under fire. That's your general quarters position, is your fighting position on the ship. Okay. Well, the boat crews were never gun crew fighting positions. And you'd say, well, why not? You know, everybody else on the ship had different positions, and all types of rates had gun positions. So, but the boat crews didn't, because if you were off the ship for whatever reason on a landing or picking up ammunition or and you had a kamikaze attack or something else, you couldn't say, well, I'm somewhere else and the gunman is not. So you never had a gun position. You never had a fighting position on the ship. Okay? So where did they put us, boat crews? My general quarters position was there, in the crow's nest. There's two crow's nests, one there and one there. And I'm telling you, that is high. Okay? But there's two advantages and a couple disadvantages. But the advantage is you sit in a bucket seat that will turn 180 degrees, not 360, 180, okay? And you got, the chair has a thing with the field glasses on, and you search the perimeter like this. You know? And what are you searching the perimeter for? Zeros. While you're underway, your biggest problem is zeros. They're always coming in over the horizon. And they, believe it or not, they have their targets picked. They know that convoy. They've had observation planes out there taking pictures, you know, and whatnot. But it's amazing that they never really, I think, knew that we were the Kline ship. Anyway, being in that position there, you could see from the horizon to the horizon with the field glass. And you're talking about seeing 500 to 700 ships in convoy. What a beautiful, beautiful view. Okay? While there's no trouble, it's beautiful. Secondly, you're looking around and you start horse playing a little bit, and it's hard for me to say things like this, but I did spot personally twice a Zero and Betty bombers, and I radioed them in, and they were shot down, okay? And, but we've had 30, 40, 50 of these types of attacks. But we never really had any that came directly at us, except once, okay? And I'm guessing now, because I'm going to be 90 in 2 weeks. My memory isn't what it used to be. But I think it was in Lingayen, and we were in convoy, and these 2 Betty bombers, not Zeros, bombers, broke off from, they had about 6 Zeros coming in, and they had 2 Betty bombers on the out flank of each of them. They peeled off, and over here, now you gotta remember, we're in convoy now. Over here is a heavy destroyer, DD. DE is a destroyer, but it doesn't have as much firepower as a DD, okay? So we have a DD here, we have a heavy cruiser in back of us there, and we have a couple other fighting ships on either side. They really protected all the big wheels, you know. So we were lucky to be on that ship. Anyway, I'm reporting that these 2 Bettys are peeling out of the flight that they were in with the Zeros. Over here, now when I say over here, I'm talking about maybe 12 miles in front of us, okay? Now I'm up here, and the other guy's here, and he's screaming, and I'm screaming, and of course all our guns started tracking to here. But remember, we had this heavy cruiser in front of us, and we had, a heavy destroyer in front of us, and a heavy cruiser directly in back of us. So either they knew or whatever. As they came around, they came over to the front, or the bow of the ship, which they had to fly over the destroyer, okay? The destroyer hit them, but got their engine on fire. It was smoking. He wasn't going for that destroyer because he was too high, and you knew it. If he was hit, he would have went right down into the destroyer. But he wanted to reach, not us. He was going for the cruiser. He wanted the big ship, okay? He didn't know that here was the command of the whole fleet, okay? And as he passed over with his engine smoking, bomb bay doors open. I'm not saying this or telling you this because I'm trying to build a story or make it look like it isn't. I'm here, my buddy's here. He was in approximately this area right here when he passed over. When I looked up, I looked directly into the bomb bay and could see the bombs still in the bay, okay? And as he got between us and the cruiser's forward guns lobbing. I mean, it clobbered him. And he went down, and I followed him all the way down into the drain, between us and the cruiser. That was a sight, I'll tell you. And if you thought I felt sorry for the guy, forget it. All right. Now, I'm just trying to think of, I'm taking things out of context time-wise because I really don't know what I'm doing, to tell you the truth. I know what I'm saying, but I'm just skipping around here. Bear with me. But I'll tell you just some interesting things that I felt were most interesting to me, even with the 5 invasions that we did. In going to Lingayen, I'm going to sit down a little bit again. In going to Lingayen, in Surigao Strait, well, let me tell you this first. You've all heard of the Battle of Midway. That was the Battle of the Carriers. I wasn't in that, it wasn't anywhere near there. But The Battle of Midway literally changed the war in the Pacific, and the air power then became the Allies. They had the air power at that point. And before that, the Japanese had the power of the air. They had control of all the air over the islands, Japan, and everything else. After the Battle of Midway, they lost that, and we now had the power that we could control the air supremacy. Why am I telling you this when I had nothing to do with it, and it has to do with air power, and I had nothing to do with air power? Okay? In Lingayen, there aren't too many people realize this. Lingayen Gulf was the turning point of the war for the sea power. When we got to Lingayen, we were getting ready for the landing there. By the way, I'm skipping Lady now and going to Lingayen, because I'm thinking about this and I don't want to forget it. Lingayen was the parallel to the Battle of Midway in sea power. When we won the Battle of Lingayen in Surigao Strait, that gave us the control of the seas from Japan all the way to the United States. How did that happen? First of all, you have to realize, and I didn't know this either, the Japanese Navy was so much larger than the American Navy, people weren't aware of that. The Battle of Lingayen Gulf was American ships, Canadian ships, Australian ships, and a couple English ships. And that just made them about even with what the Japanese had to throw at them. So you can get an idea of how large the Japanese Navy really was and how powerful they were. But people do not realize that Lingayen and Midway were both turning points of the war. One was turning point of the air power, the other was the turning point of the sea power. And now I'm going to tell you something that people aren't aware of. You don't even see it in history books or whatever about the Battle of Lingayen. About 3 o'clock in the morning, our whole crew was waking. Of course, the gun crews were up anyway, but most of the boat crews were sleeping at that point because we got out and walked on deck, and it was, you talk about the 4th of July, this was 5 4th of Julys rolled into one. The Battle of Lingayen Gulf had all, the majority of our Navy, the majority of the Japanese Navy, with all those heavy, I'm talking about guns that could shoot 25, 30 miles, 40 miles, okay? They were a half a mile away from each other. And when they would hit each other, I mean, the whole ships would go up. And for 3 hours or so, we just stood at the rails and just saw this, and you could feel the explosions in the air. You know, they were only maybe about 5 miles away from us, out in the strait where we were in the cold light. Now here's the deal: we're up there, and at that point I was just standing on the deck, and a couple of the seamen go running by, and they said, "Did you hear the news? You better get up, better check your boat out." And I said, "What are you talking about? We're sitting out in the bay. We're not going anywhere until this battle is over and whatnot." He said, "Don't worry about it." He said, "The word is that we got to get ready to maybe scuttle the ship. If we scuttle the ship, you got to have your boat to work, and we're all going to join." This is a radio man that's telling me this. He is all excited. And I'm up in the davit in my boat. And he's yelling up there, "Get your boat ready, this and that, see the fresh water." I said, "What the hell are you talking about? You know, we're not due to go in till the next day, or the following 2 days in the morning was when we had thought the landing was going to be." He says, "Well, we got the word that if they lose the sea battle out there, we're scuttling the Wasatch, we're all going ashore and we're joining the troops. I said, that can't be. Yeah, you're hallucinating, or maybe it's too much here for you there, because, I mean, there was a lot of noise and a lot of, like I said, if you ever saw the greatest fireworks you ever saw, was nothing to compare with this. But anyway, I did get the scoop, and that was the word. They did not know at that point if they were going to lose, if they were going to have to scuttle the main ships and go ashore. Well, I think just before dawn, we got the word that we had the upper hand in the battle and they expected to win. And then, of course, we start making arrangements to hit the beach the next day, which we did. Now, again, I went in on the second wave. Now, I think I explained to you why my boat was always in the second wave, because the ones that were on the troop ships, the boats like mine, they had the troops right there, so they were always in the first wave. So I was really a happy sailor that I did not get assigned to a troop ship. Number two, we would always go then to that same troop ship, form a circle with other LCVPs that were from other ships. And when you were called, you went up to the rope and they loaded you up. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Getting loading 36 fully equipped infantry in your boat. You see it in the movies, you know, you see them coming down and they're carrying BARs and rifles and whatnot, and it really looks like that's a fun thing to do. Let me tell you something. That's one of the most dangerous things that you can do if you're a boat driver, and also one of the most dangerous things for the troops, even as much as a landing. Why? If you're lucky and the water's calm, and it's not, you know, your bow hookman and stern hookman will hang on to the ropes, and you'll be right up against the ship, and they can just hop off, and there's no problem. But remember, they're still carrying all this heavy stuff. And so that was always something that was in the back of our mind. Luckily, you know, and I thank God that never happened in my case. And to be perfectly honest with you, I never knew of any of my cohorts that it happened to them, but I had heard about it. And from the story that they told you didn't ever want that to happen. I didn't think I was going to be able to talk this time. Let me look at, if you don't mind, give me a few seconds here to look at my, like I said, I'm going to be 90 soon. It's hard for me to remember all this. I'm just going to read you from the ship's log the times and the dates that we went to these different places and made these landings, and that way you know I'm lying. I'm not lying because of the fact that I couldn't give you the exact date and time. The invasion, Wasatch was the flagship for the invasion, and Admiral Barbie was the admiral on board. Oh, before I go into that, I think that, yes I do. I'm going to read you some of the admirals and generals that were aboard our ship. And I'm going to tell you this up front. The only time I ever saw them is when they walked underneath my boat when I was up in the cabin. The enlisted guys didn't get to talk much to guys like General MacArthur, General Kruger, or Admiral Barbie, or any of them. In fact, you kept away from them as much as you could. All right? Now, we had General MacArthur, we had Rear Admiral Riggs, we had General Kruger, we had Admiral Barbie, Admiral Kincaid, Lieutenant General Eschenberger, Major General F.C. Seibert, and that was only some of them. So you can see this was a ship that was a no-nonsense thing when it came to work. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, there's my boy. What happened to remember I had that picture of General MacArthur? Oh, there it is. No, yeah, okay, but the other one there has the boat. Right there, not back there, right. There's a picture of General MacArthur and a picture of our ship. And this, I have it. This is Louis. He was my bow hooker, but because General MacArthur was in the boat, in one of the other boat on the starboard side, I don't know whether the guy was sick or something happened to him, but they took my bow hooker to go ashore with him, and he was in the boat with General MacArthur. And Eleanor was a first-class boatswain mate because MacArthur was going in his boat, so they never had a first-class boatswain mate as a coxswain. In this case, he was. And I was, don't hold me to this, but maybe 2, 3 boats, 4 boats over in the wave going in. This was in wartime. And like I said, there was hardly any action there. Well, we hit the beach, the troops went off, and here comes Zeller in number 6 boat, or number 5 boat. And he drops his ramp, and there's no troops on the ramp. You know, they did MacArthur and a couple other generals and they took pictures of him. He lights his corncob pipe. I don't know if I should say this because I could get myself in trouble. But he jumps off. He's sitting on the Gray Marine diesel engine, which has a cover on it, and he hops off and he gets on. And he turns it. And 2 other generals or whatever they were with him. Goes like this. He puts a cob in his mouth, lights it. Starts out, drop the ramp, yep. Drops the ramp. The 3 of them walk out in the surf, okay, to the beach. And of course they're taking movies and movies. So I said, man, I want to get back to the ship. But I can't move because we couldn't get off there until we get permission from the beach. So they wanted to look just like a regular land. So he turns around after that. I see him talking and he turns around. Like I said, I don't know if I should be saying this, but he goes back and wades back to the boat. And he turned around, and I see all the guys setting up on the beach again. Son of a gun, here he comes, the second time. So I said, I don't believe this. And my bow hookman, not my stern hookman, because my bow hookman was over there with him. He says, Louis is having a great time. He says he's in MacArthur in 2 landings. Anyway, that's it. Don't say that I said that because I could get in trouble. Oh yeah, that's the picture. By the way, you could bet that none of our crew or any of our guys could take a picture like that. That was the photographer that was with his division that took the picture of him in the boat. So what I'm saying, in fact, right there is Louis. So, and there's Zellner, that's the first class boatman. So and they were both, he was my bow hookman. So I went in, we hit the beach, I already had a stern hookman and me and a 30 caliber machine gun. So anyway, I hope I'm not boring you with this. I should be.
May I give you a second to take a breath, and I'll just read something that you and I talked about.
If you have a glass of water, I would appreciate it.
Can we get a bottle of water for the truck? Something? There we go. Thank you. You know, we've had a lot of people in the South Pacific, and the question always is about MacArthur. And I asked you that question when we interviewed you.
Yeah, you know I didn't want to talk about it too much.
I know, but this is a perfect opportunity
You got me here. I got an audience, man.
So I can take the blame for it. There's a book called MacArthur's War that I read, and you are somewhat back and forth about was he this, was he that. And I asked Chuck that, and he just sort of wish-washed, I don't want to get in trouble. But in the book was this page that I thought was rather appropriate, and that's why I grabbed the microphone. It's called Redemption. 1943. says, I am indebted to General MacArthur for the high statesmanship and breadth of world vision he has contributed to the discussions, the complete integration of our concepts, which has been a source of such strength in the past and will continue to the end. Written by MacArthur and inserted at his request in a radio broadcast delivered by Australian Prime Minister John Curtin, December 1, 1943. Not that he would be biased. The second part is even more interesting. MacArthur is shrewd, selfish, proud, remote, highly strung, vastly vain. He has imagination, self-confidence, physical courage, and charm, but no humor about himself and no regard for the truth. He is unaware of these defects. He mistakes his emotions and ambitions for principles. That wasn't written by MacArthur. That was written by Lieutenant Colonel Gerald Wilkinson, MacArthur's British liaison officer, in a memorandum to the British Foreign Office, October 15, 1943. And you're not going to get in trouble because I said it, you didn't.
Oh, I have mine, yeah. I'm a little confused here now. See, that's how you get to be. When you're 90, you can't keep your thoughts together. You notice I'm saying I'm 90 already, even though I'm 2 weeks from it, 3 weeks. It gets you a lot of stuff easy. I want to tell you, if I'm not boring you, I want to tell you about a couple things. You don't usually hear about some of the things that happen to you individually. When we left Lady and we were on our way to Lingayen, we had a big flotilla going in there, and we were in convoy, and it was just starting to get dusk. When you're in the Pacific and you see the sunset, there's nothing more beautiful. It's just gorgeous. But anyway, we're out there. I'm up in the crow's nest. Nothing's happening. And all of a sudden, we get a radio call that one of the spotters like me says there's a whole wing of Zeros, Bettys, and some seaplanes that are all coming. And they think that they're all suicide planes, okay, which number they said about 30. Okay, now we couldn't take a chance. We had no clue who they were going to go after, or if they had any intelligence as to what ships were what. But they always knew where the capital ships were, where the cruisers and battle lines, they would always go for them, and the heavy destroyers. But I never did this before. I had training for it, but I never did it. I get the thing that I'm up in the cruise and they say, all the coxswains man your boat. All the coxswains, there's 2 of us. Okay? We got 2 boats. So I said, oh jeez. We're out, we're in the middle of the ocean. I didn't even know where. We're between going on the way to Lingayen. And I did hear that there's this squadron of suicide planes coming. So they said, and I didn't know that they were preparing these smoke. See, they called them smoke generators. And what they did, they were about this high and about that wide. They were run on diesel and gasoline, okay? And I mean, they laid smoke, okay? So they would put this on the back of my boat because I'm not the key landing boat, second lane, that's not. So he's on the hotel ship, they got the best job, they got the best, let him take the smoke duty, okay? I'm assuming that's what they're saying, because that's usually the way it went. Anyway, they come up and they lower my boat, and the guy they bring this smoke generator over, which I said, I had training in this. They just buckle this thing down on your stern sheet. And they fire this thing up. And what I got to do now, me and my crew, we're three of us, we have to go, while they're in convoy, we're going between the ships, laying smoke, okay? Now, I had experience, but I never really laid smoke. We ran it, we did the thing we were supposed to know, we did the way we were supposed to steer it and go between the ships, and I knew all that, but I really never was in the smoke. So we had the radio. We didn't have a radio very often, but we did when we were laying smoke. So the guy says, "Coxswain, when are you going to start laying smoke?" "Lay smoke." He says, "The planes are on their way." So, and I was very leery about laying the smoke. So finally, an officer got on and he said, "You better start laying smoke," he says, "or you're not coming back aboard." So, call me. Well, that scared the living, you know what I said. So I said, "Fire her up." And Louis gives her a crank on and it was like a lawnmower, you know, to start. And this thing, and black smoke is coming out of there like 3 times the width of my stern sheet on my boat, okay? Now I know what to do. And I'm saying, well, you know, everybody in the back of me is getting all this crap. I'm in front of them. But I forgot. When I turned around and come back and go the other way, I go through it. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And this went back and forth. There was 6, maybe 10 boats out here laying smoke. Well, I'll tell you, we had 600 ships maybe, and I bet you couldn't see 3 ships after the wind caught onto them. And this stuff stunk like heck. You know, when you mix gasoline and diesel together, you can imagine the smell. Well, every time we'd go crosswind, it would blow against us. We finally got finished, and we get back to the ship, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're having a late breakfast for the boat crews. Man, we really feel privileged, right? We come out of there, we look like we just got out of a minstrel. All the boat and all the mess cooks, man, don't come near it. We stunk. You stunk from wall for almost 10 days. You could shower, you could wash, it was in your skin. You couldn't get it out. I mean, we weren't black anymore, but we stunk. So I said, "Please God, no more smoke duty." Thank goodness we didn't have to have any more smoke duty. So that was something I don't think you get to hear about too often, so I figured I'd throw that in. Besides, it makes me look good. Now let me just run through this real quick. I don't want to bore you. And we left Norfolk, Virginia, naval base. Well, first of all, let me tell you this. I went to Boots, I was 17 years old. I got out of Boots, I went directly, I was supposed to go to Naval Aviation Cadet. That's what I signed up in high school. I graduated in January of 44, just 44, right, just turned. And I was supposed to go to Lehigh, and I did for 3 months. But the thing is, when you signed up for V5, you could either sign up for V5, Naval Aviation Cadet Officer, or V12, which was a deck officer, okay? And they got all us kids gung-ho in high school to do that. If you could pass the test in equivalency of some college stuff, you could do it. So there were 6 of us from Bethlehem Technical High School. Now that's not Vo-Tech. In Bethlehem, they had technical high school, which was a technical school, no business courses, no typewriters, everything geared up for engineering, okay? And this is the school we went to, and we got to go to Lehigh for 3 months. And they called us. We didn't think about that, you know. We go, oh, we can't afford to go to college, so this way we'll get to college. You know? So 3 months they call us. We go, get the Bay Bridge, take our boots, and we can't wait to go to Aviation Cadet School, you know. We get in OGU, the outgoing unit. We're in the Quonset hut. Everything in the Navy happens at 3 or 4 in the morning. They come in and they say, Quonset hut number 1, out on the road, okay? So we all go out there, it's like 4 o'clock. Now you guys are really lucky, yeah? Great, about time. We're closing the Naval Aviation Cadet Program. We have more planes, or we have more pilots than we got planes. Uh-oh, we know we're in trouble now. So we're looking at each other, and he says, there's 2 officers there. And he said, guess what? You guys are the cream of the crop, so we're going to give you your choice. You got 3 things that everybody wants in the Navy. Damn, we are lucky we're looking at it. And he said, first, submarine. Not me. No way. But we did get a half a dozen or maybe 10 guys. They wanted submarine, okay? What's next? Armed guard. Hey, I'm 17 years old. What the hell's armed guard? I think, and I'm talking to the guy next to me. He's asking me, you know. And I said, armed guard, that's what you stand guard duty, 24 hours a day. We don't want that, you know. That we find out later, armed guard is the Navy gun crews on the merchant ships that are getting sunk every day. Okay? No, we don't want that. You know? Well, what else is that? Well, you got to take something, you know. Well, the next is amphibs. Well, what's that? You know, 17 years old, what the hell we know, right? Small boats. Oh, PTs, yeah. Oh, yeah, PTs, landing craft. They whispered landing craft. Hey, there you go. So all, the majority of us, the majority, volunteered for amphibs. We later found out all the F-ups go into volunteer, get pulled into the amphib. Nobody volunteers for the amphib. And here they got supposed to be halfway decent, pretty good guys. We don't volunteer for it. So we don't know yet, right? We're all geared up to get into PT boats, and we were gung-ho for that. We go to Newport, and we do get on PT boats. Now they had a torpedo TBF Avenger squadron in Newport. I forget the name of the air base, but we were across the way from it. And where? Quonset Point. That's it. Yeah. See, I'm 90 years old. It's okay. Anyway, we get on this PT boat, and we're just crew, you know. And what are we doing? The torpedo planes are practicing dropping torpedoes. We chase the torpedoes, net them, and tow them back so they can use them over again. Oh, hey, that's good, man. I'm not going to get hurt that way. Okay, it's good. That's about 5 days. After that, all of us, not one stayed in PT. Every one of us ended up in amphibs either driving or boat crew, landing craft, okay? First day out in Long Island Sound. Have any of you ever been in Long Island Sound in a boat in the fall or close to winter? It's outside of, you know, Newport, Rhode Island. It is rough. Rough. And you're looking at a Bethlehem boy that hasn't been anywhere but the lake up in the Poconos in a canoe, you know? Lake Walpack, if any of you are familiar, okay? That's all I know. And I'm the coxswain, right? And I'm in there, and I'm telling you, if there was ever a day that I was ready to die, right then, you could have thrown me overboard, just put something on sink. You know? We were so sick. the whole crew. At that time, we had a radio man. We had 4 men in a crew. You ended up with 3 men, but all 4 of us were so sick it was pathetic. And I'm throwing up, they're throwing up, in the JG 90-day wonder. I don't know, I'm really giving you a history lesson. I'm surprised this is all coming back to me so clear. He says, he looks at us and he says, I remember the words he said, how did you ladies ever get in the Navy? I said, my God, I can't believe this. Get down in get well. He said, I don't even want to look at your face. And all 4 of us are down there throwing up in the well. And we're all wishing to die. And he's cursing us and yelling. And we finally get back. And he gets out and he's just going, man, I don't know how I got this crew. Don't give me them tomorrow. And the guy that's in charge of him said, you got them. Well, we finally ended up, after about 10 days or so, we got pretty used to it. And never got seasick anymore, ever. So, but I'll tell you, you don't want to go through that the first time. Sure. And then, and I won't go tell you the particulars of this, but you see how tall I am. Well, I was about 5'5.5", maybe I'll squeeze it 5'6". I don't think so, I'm lying. But 5'5.5", and I'm saying, if I looked right, you look at that boat, I could see through the splash guard that they had, that they always kept down. But when it got rough, they closed it, right? So now I can't see over the top. And I'm looking around here like I'm trying. And the JG taps me on the back. He says, what the hell are you doing, Coxswain? I said, I'm trying to see where I'm going. He said, you can't see over the top? No. He said, how did you ever get into the Navy? Or how did you ever get into the Navy? I said, I didn't ask for it. I asked for the pilot. He says, get the hell out of here. And he took the boat in. If I'm going overtime,
You could go all night.
I didn't think so.
What I'd like to do is maybe give the audience a chance to ask you questions.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't want to tell my history.
They don't want you to leave. They're going to stay till midnight.
Well, I do want to read this real quick.
Okay. We have a fellow that takes the questions. Kurt?
He wants to read that.
All right, well, I'll do that, and then I'll just read the next one.
By the way, while I'm over here, I grew up right next to Quonset Point.
Well, then you know what I'm talking about.
Could you tell us about your off-duty hours, whenever you had any free time, if you had any shore leave time?
Very little shore leave time. You mean overseas?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when we went to Manus for repairs, and we would go on the Liberty Party, but I had the least amount of liberty because I had to use my boat to take the Liberty Party out. So I would go with them, and I will tell you one thing. You see me here, I'm trying to remember where that was. Can you picture me in a boxing ring? And I think there's a picture of me there somewhere. And I'm like this here, you know. I was in pretty good shape, 5'5", 5'6", like Kline. And I'm trying to think. I got into, on one of these working parties, because of that, I got into a deal where they had a boxing match, Navy boxing. So they said, well, Chuck, he was in this rest camp down there in New Guinea. And so he said, go ahead, Chuck. I said, man, you're crazy. Look at me. I mean, He said, but you were there, you did it already, and you did a little. Yeah, I said, I did a little. I did a little in high school. I did a little wrestling too. They wouldn't let me wrestle because the guys were all bigger than me and they had the leverage on me. So what I ended up doing, I got my letter in geez, can you believe I can't remember it was gymnastics. It was all around me in gymnastics. I love that. Anyway, what happened was that my boat crew said, go ahead, you know, if you win, you get 10 cases of beer. If you lose, you get 5. I didn't drink beer, okay? So I said, well, you're the coxswain, you know, you gotta show some support. All right, it's 3 rounds, you know, I'm just winning. I get in there with this guy, and he is from New Jersey, and he's got about an arm and a half reach on me. I'll tell you, I didn't do anything but drink water and eat liquids for the next week. But I was a hero because I got 5 cases of beer. That's it. All right.
Taking one for the chapter, isn't it?
Now, you can't make that stuff up.
Mr. Kline, I'm a little curious. You know, your ship was not a troop ship.
No.
When you went in on a combat landing, were those special troops you were taking in, or officers?
Oh, no. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. You said that I was not on a troop ship.
No, I understand that. But when you went in on combat landing,
Yeah.
since you weren't on a troop ship,
No, we were
did you take special troops in, or like communications, or officers, or?
The only thing I knew is, I don't know. All I know is they had guns and were ready to fight. I don't know what kind of troops they were.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and by the way, we would not have guessed that you haven't done this every day for like 20 years.
I've enjoyed your presentation very much so far. But one thing worried me when you were talking about that black smoke and you were going in and around each one of the other ships.
Right.
Well, did you guys get gas masks or something? Well, I mean, if I'm behind a truck and it lets that diesel fuel out, I start coughing. How'd you guys survive?
The Navy was very generous to us. You know these old bandana checkered handkerchiefs you get the very that's what I had. That was it. And they put water on it. But the thing is, and one thing I will say that was really very dangerous, you know, we couldn't see much better than anybody else, and we were worried about the other ships hitting us. That was the big problem. So every time we get close enough that we could see through, and we saw a bow of the ship, man, I gunned her.
Did you know they were looking for a replacement for Johnny Carson?
I'm going to be 90.
All right, anybody else? Yes.
I was stationed in the Philippines for a year in 1945,
Hey,
right on Lake Hill.
lady, okay.
And I was stationed at Dulog, which is where Douglas landed.
Wait a minute, what, say that again? What?
I was stationed at Dulog.
Dulog.
Yep. About 15 miles south of Tacloban.
Oh, Tacloban, there you go, I was there.
Yep. Well, we made a lot of fun about Dugout Doug, we always call him Dugout Doug, making several landings so he could get photographed.
See, he never did.
He was a real hot dog.
See, he just got me on something now, Tacloban. I'll tell you a very sad story about that. We came back to Manila and then went over, we had Liberty, we went over to, I can't think of the big Navy base. Subic Bay. See what I mean? I'm there and I can't think of a day thing. And when I was there, we got some time off and we went ashore. I don't recall exactly where that was geographically, but it was. That could be.
What was the name of the town right outside of Subi?
I think you're right, but we got to, it was close to Tacloban. And we got a lift to Tacloban because we had heard about this. Now today I understand Tacloban is a fairly, it's like almost the size of Bethlehem or Allentown. And when we were there, it was a village, okay? And what I want to tell you about is a very sad story because my Balhook and my son, the three of us were walking in there, and at that time, they just had a little circle like that was the center of town. It was not bigger than this, it wasn't even as big as this auditorium. And there was a well in the middle of that circle. And we walked over to there, and I saw there was a plaque there, and I wanted to see what it was about, because we had to leave soon. That was before we had gone to Mindanao. So we walked over, and I looked down, and I said, Louis, I said, look at that. What is that? And he bends down, and it was dirt, sand, red, and it was blood. And I said, my God, I wonder what happened there, you know. And this Filipino comes over who could speak English, and he said, read the thing, the plaque that was up there. And it said, it's hard for me to say, on this spot, 2 of the first aviators that were shot down and captured by the Japanese were beheaded. I never forgot that. And I'll tell you, at that point, and I don't feel that way now, but I'll tell you, I didn't feel bad about any dead Jap that I saw. And I would not call a Japanese a Jap today, but when I'm thinking in those terms then, I have no qualms. Because they were really, really tough. But let me tell you this. The Japanese fighter, the army guy, the infantry, pound for pound, was probably the best fighter in the world. Why do I say that? Number one, you know some other people in the same situation. They were either going to die for the emperor or they were going to get killed in battle. It was a win-win situation for them. So that made them the toughest fighters. And they lived, what we lived on K rations and we had 3 meals a day in the Navy, they went 4, 5, 6 days a week without eating or maybe a morsel or something. And still they could fight as well as anybody there was. So you have to give credit where credit's due. They were a tough enemy. On a serious note, you know, when you think about those things, it really gets you to thinking and knowing how lucky you really were. I'll get off that. Let's talk about other things. Anything else that anybody wants to?
I'd like to say thank you. As you know, we're an all-volunteer organization here and whatnot, but we do reward our speakers handsomely.
Oh,
Yeah, you didn't expect that, did you?
No.
I don't know what Charlie promised you, but you get.
he said I'd get a pretzel.
You get.
Oh, boy.
World War II Round Table mug.
There you go. I'll cherish this. I'm just going to tell you one secret, and then I'm going to leave.
You're not going to get another mug.
No. I'm a Jewish boy in a beautiful Presbyterian church, Methodist church. It's my pleasure to be here, and I really, really thank all of you from the bottom of my heart.
lots of stuff up here at the table to look over. He'll be here to answer more questions. And,
Wow. Hope you got all that for posterity.